My name is Gertrude C. Lawson, and I am 32 years old. At dinner, my dad announced, "Your niece are the only ones who will make something of themselves, not like your boy." Everyone laughed, but my 8-year-old boy didn't. I just replied, "Cool, then I'll stop paying her $1,600 tuition." My sister Erin froze. My dad gripped my arm and whispered, "Please, not here." And then I realized how long I'd been swallowing things just to keep the peace in a family that never protected mine. It was supposed to be a family dinner, just a calm Sunday night at my parents' house, celebrating my mom's birthday. I baked a carrot cake. Eli carried it proudly into the kitchen when we arrived, and I remember thinking maybe it would be okay. Just a few hours. Smile through it. Keep the peace. Erin was already there, sitting like she always does, the favorite at the head of the table even when it's not her house. Her daughter Ava sat beside her in some frilly dress with pearls on it. She's 9 and already has a calendar more packed than a politician. Ballet, violin, soccer, some coding class now too. It never ends. Eli's 8. He likes to draw monsters. He loves learning about sharks and volcanoes. He's curious in a quiet way. And maybe that's not something you can show off at a dinner party, but I see the way he thinks, the way his brain works. He's my entire world. Dinner started like usual, my mom talking about her neighbors, Erin bragging about Ava's last recital, how her instructor said she's gifted, how they're thinking about getting her a private coach. I nodded through it. Didn't say much. I've gotten used to it, the way they all act, like Erin's daughter is royalty, and mine's just tagging along in the background. I tried to focus on the normal things, the clink of forks, the smell of roasted chicken, Eli's feet swinging under the chair, because they didn't quite touch the floor, his shoulders slightly tense, like he already knew what kind of room this was. Then my dad raised his glass. He started slow, thanking us for coming, saying how proud he is of all of us. Then he turned to Ava and gave her that look like she's the second coming of Einstein and Misty Copeland rolled into one. He said, "Your nieces are the only ones who will actually make something of themselves." He looked straight at me. "Not like your boy." Everyone laughed. Not awkward, not unsure, loud, real laughter. Erin cackled. My mom didn't even blink. Ava giggled like she didn't get it but laughed anyway. Eli looked up at me. I'll never forget that. He didn't cry, he didn't say anything, but his eyes changed. That's the only way I can put it. They changed. It was like something he'd been holding on to inside himself, some small belief that grown-ups were safe and family was gentle, slipped right out of his hands and fell under the table where he couldn't reach it anymore. I set down my fork and looked at my dad. "Cool," I said. "Then I'll stop paying her $1,600 tuition." It went dead quiet. Just like that. You could hear the clock ticking behind the fridge. Erin blinked like she didn't hear me right. My mom opened her mouth, then shut it again. My dad leaned toward me and gripped my arm. I didn't look at him, but I heard him whisper, "Please, not here." So I said, "Nothing." Erin leaned back and gave me this half smile. "Come on. It's not about the money. It's about raising kids to actually do something. Ava has drive. Your son just kind of floats around." I could feel my heartbeat in my jaw. I looked at Eli again. He was staring at the napkin in his lap like he wished it could swallow him whole. I stood up. "We're leaving," I said. Eli got up without a word. As I turned, I heard my mom mutter, "There she goes again." Always so dramatic. Erin laughed. We left the gift on the table. I didn't say goodbye. We walked out and didn't look back. That night, Eli crawled into my bed after midnight. He whispered, "Am I weird because I don't like sports?" I told him no. I told him he's amazing. And I meant it. The next morning, I logged into the school's payment portal and canceled the recurring tuition transfer. I didn't say a word to anyone, not my sister, not my parents. They didn't call, didn't even message, not yet, but they would. And when they did, it wouldn't be to apologize. It would be to panic. The first couple of days after the dinner were quiet. Too quiet. No sarcastic text from Erin, no passive-aggressive call from my mom, not even a forwarded Bible quote from my dad, which is usually his way of trying to guilt me without actually saying anything. It was the kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful, just suspended, like everyone is holding their breath to see who blinks first. I knew exactly what it was. They were waiting to see if I was bluffing. The tuition was due Thursday. I'd been paying it every month like clockwork for over a year. $1,600 for Ava's private school, plus random extras Aaron would Venmo request, like I was a walking wallet. Uniform fees, activity fees. Just this once, expenses that somehow never stopped. It was never officially my responsibility, but after Aaron's husband got laid off, I offered to help. Once. And they just never stopped letting me. Thursday came and went. Nothing left my account. No frantic message. No awkward thank you. Just that same tight quiet. The kind you get when someone is staring at their phone, refreshing a screen, hoping the problem fixes itself. Friday morning, I was packing Eli's lunch when my phone buzzed. Aaron. Hey, think the school messed up Ava's tuition. They're saying it didn't go through. The wording was casual, almost playful, like this was a minor inconvenience and not the unraveling of something she'd built her life around. I left her on read. I finished cutting Eli's apple slices, zipped his backpack, walked him to the door, and kissed the top of his head before he left. I didn't respond until hours later. Nope, I wrote. I canceled it. 3 minutes passed. Then, "You're joking, right?" I didn't answer. 10 minutes later, another message popped up. "You're seriously punishing a child over a dumb joke. Grow up." By lunchtime, I had 5 missed calls from her, 2 from my mom and 1 from my dad. That one made my stomach tighten because he never calls unless something is actually broken or dead. Then came the message from my mom. Short, carefully worded, heavy with guilt. "Can we talk? You know Ava's schooling matters. Aaron's going through a lot." That line almost made me laugh. Aaron going through a lot was code for Aaron spending too much on things she assumed someone else would cover. Yoga retreats, weekend getaways, a new phone she needed for work. And as usual, I was expected to quietly plug the hole. By 5 o'clock, my mom was at my door with a bag of groceries she pretended was for me, even though most of it was junk Eli doesn't even eat. I let her in. She sat down like it was a casual visit, commented on how tired I looked, then jumped straight into it. She said I was being petty, that Ava shouldn't suffer because I felt insulted, that holding grudges wasn't healthy. Then she said the part she'd clearly rehearsed. "Let's be honest, Gertrude, you're not struggling. You have a good job, no mortgage, no husband, no one to support but yourself and Eli. Aaron's raising kids, and you know Ava is gifted. She needs this school." I asked her one thing. Why is it always me paying for the things she needs? She blinked, then gave me that look like she pitied me for not understanding how families work. She didn't answer the question. She just sighed and said, "That's what family does." When she left, she kissed Eli on the head, didn't look at me, and said, "I hope you come to your senses before you make things worse." That night, my dad called. I picked up. He didn't yell. He didn't sound angry. That made it worse. He said I was being disrespectful, that I was letting a childish moment ruin family ties. He used the word vindictive. Said Eli would grow up watching me alienate the people closest to us, and that I was setting the wrong example. I asked him if he really thought what he said at dinner was harmless. He paused, then said it was a joke. If you can't handle a little teasing, maybe you're not as tough as you think. I hung up. Saturday passed. Sunday came and went. Nothing. But I knew this wasn't over. Then Monday morning, a text came in from my dad. "We're stopping by tomorrow just to clear the air." I stared at the screen and something felt off, like they weren't coming to clear the air at all, like something else was already planned. I typed back, "Sure." And without fully understanding why, I made sure every room in the house was clean and every cabinet was closed. They pulled into my driveway right on time, 10 in the morning, exactly when they said they would. That alone should have warned me. My family is never on time unless there's an agenda. I watched them from the living room window before opening the door. My dad got out first, shoulders squared, arms already crossed, like he was bracing for a confrontation he didn't want to admit he started. My mom followed with a pie wrapped in foil, smiling too brightly, like this was a casual visit instead of a negotiation. We didn't even make it to the kitchen. They walked straight into the living room and sat down like they owned the place. I stayed standing. My mom did most of the talking, the way she always does when they're trying to play good cop, bad cop. She said they just wanted to check in, that the last week had been hard on everyone, that Aaron was emotional and didn't mean everything she said. She mentioned Ava, how confused she was about why school suddenly felt uncertain, how children need stability. I nodded and let her talk. I didn't interrupt. I'd heard this rhythm before. Feelings first, accountability never. The goal wasn't to understand me, it was to exhaust me until I folded. Then she slipped in the line she'd clearly been holding back. She's just a child, Gertrude. You're punishing a 9-year-old because you were embarrassed at dinner. That's not who you are. I looked at her and said calmly, I'm not punishing anyone. I'm just not paying anymore. My dad finally spoke. This is your family. You don't walk away from family. You help when you're needed. I asked, do you think mocking my son in front of everyone was help? He didn't answer. He shifted in his seat and stared past me like the conversation had already dropped below his level of interest. That's when I knew they weren't here to listen. They were here to try something else. The tone changed fast after that. My mom stood up and said she'd heat the pie in the kitchen, that she even brought whipped cream for Eli. She smiled like she'd just scored a point. A minute later, my dad stood too and said he needed the bathroom. I pointed him down the hall without thinking much of it and sat down, suddenly very tired. A few minutes passed. Too many. The bathroom light never turned on. The door didn't close. Something in my chest tightened. I stood and walked down the hall. He wasn't in the bathroom. He was in my bedroom. My dresser drawer was open, the one I kept closed out of habit. He was holding the envelope I'd hidden beneath a stack of old t-shirts. Emergency cash. About $1,000. Money I'd been setting aside quietly for months in case the car broke down or Eli needed something I couldn't cover right away. I stood in the doorway. He froze. For a second, neither of us said anything. Then he looked at the envelope, looked at me, and slowly put it back like this was all some misunderstanding. He stepped around me and walked past without a word. When I followed him back into the living room, my mom was standing by the stove, the pie still untouched. She looked at both of us, and I understood immediately. She already knew. This wasn't a coincidence. It was coordinated, a distraction and a search. I told them to leave. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't explain. I just said, you need to go, now. They didn't argue. My dad grabbed his keys. My mom didn't say goodbye. I locked the door behind them and slid down onto the hallway floor, staring at the carpet while everything settled into place. It wasn't about the money. It was about what it meant, that they saw what I had, even what I kept hidden, as something they were entitled to, that they would cross that line without shame, because I'd always been the one who paid, the one who fixed things, the one who made it easier for Erin to keep falling without hitting the ground. That night I texted Erin, figure it out. I'm done. She replied less than a minute later, unbelievable. You're seriously going to let a child suffer just to prove a point over a joke. I've always known you were jealous, but this is a new low. I didn't respond. I walked into Eli's room instead. He was asleep, tangled in his blanket, one hand resting on his open notebook. Sharks again. He'd drawn a great white with a speech bubble that said, don't mess with my mom. I sat on the edge of his bed and made a promise right there in the dark. I wasn't going to let them touch one more part of our life. Not through guilt, not through shame, not through fake visits or quiet searches. Whatever this was becoming, I was done playing nice. I didn't plan the next move. I didn't sit down and map it out or rehearse what I was going to say. I woke up the next morning, made Eli his breakfast, packed his lunch, and folded a load of laundry like it was any other day. Halfway through matching socks, something in me just clicked. Not anger, not panic, just a clean, quiet certainty. I needed the weight off my chest, and I needed it now. So I got in the car and drove to my parents' house. I didn't text, I didn't call. I knew Erin wouldn't be there. Tuesdays were always Ava's soccer practice, followed by tutoring. The two things I used to fund without thinking. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was finally going back to the place where all the guilt had grown roots, and my sister would be off kicking balls and practicing vocabulary words I'd probably paid for last semester. My mom opened the door and smiled like I was a surprise guest dropping by for tea. Well, look who finally came to her senses, she said. I walked right past her without a word and into the kitchen. My dad was at the table, coffee in one hand, scrolling on his tablet. He didn't look up. Took you long enough, he said. Let's get past all this. I stayed standing. I'm here for my spare keys. That made him look up. My mom made a small sound behind me, disappointment mixed with disbelief, like I'd just said something obscene. You can't be serious, she said. Gertrude, don't be dramatic. Where are they? I asked. She crossed her arms and stared at me, testing how far she could push it. Then she sighed, walked down the hallway, and came back with a small ceramic dish, the kind she used to keep peppermints in. Inside were the keys. My keys, the front door, the garage remote, even the old gate key I barely remembered giving them years ago. I took them all and closed my hand around them. I don't want you letting yourselves in anymore, I said. Not for surprises, not for favors, not ever. My dad stood up then. So that's it, he said. One dinner, and you throw away your whole family. You didn't just insult my son, I said. You humiliated him. You laughed in his face. And when that didn't work, you came into my home and tried to take money from me. He scoffed. You think we need your little rainy day fund. That wasn't stealing. I was checking if you had anything to spare. You've always helped. That's the problem, I said. It's not helping if I'm expected to give. That's exploitation. He stared at me like he couldn't believe I was saying it out loud. My mom jumped in, voice soft, smoothing the edges like she always did. You don't have to make this a war. You know we've always been proud of you. But Ava, she just shows more effort. She has goals. She's not passive like Eli. Passive? I repeated. I didn't mean it like that, she said quickly. I just mean he doesn't seem interested in anything. He's 8, I said. Ava is 9, and you think that makes her better. They both looked at me like I was being unreasonable, like I'd misunderstood something obvious. I shook my head. You think I'm doing this because I'm bitter or holding a grudge. I'm doing this because every time I've tried to protect my kid, you've turned it into a joke. I'm not joking anymore. My mom stepped forward, voice low. You're making a mistake. Eli is going to grow up resenting you for cutting us out. You're isolating him. You're teaching him he doesn't have a family. I didn't argue. I turned and walked toward the door. Behind me, my dad muttered, You'll regret this. One day you'll come back. You always do. I stopped, keys cold in my hand. I used to, I said. Not anymore. I left without another word. Later that night, Aaron posted a vague status online. Something about bitterness and jealousy and people who would rather let a child suffer than admit they're wrong. I didn't react. 10 minutes after that, she texted me. So this is really what you want? To go full psycho and burn everything down. Enjoy your quiet little life. You'll be forgotten before Ava hits high school. I stared at that message for a long time, not because it hurt, but because it confirmed something I needed to know. To them, my boundaries were an attack. My silence was betrayal. My love for my son was an inconvenience. If that made me forgettable, I was fine with that. I thought taking the keys would end it. Not with apologies or understanding, but at least with distance. I truly believed that once they realized I wasn't bending, they'd retreat, lick their wounds, complain about me behind closed doors, and move on to the next family drama that didn't require them to look in a mirror. I was wrong. At first, it was just noise. Aaron posted another vague status online about relatives who sabotage out of jealousy. My mom sent a text like nothing had happened. Just checking in. Hope Eli is doing well. The next day, another one. I baked your favorite. Want me to drop some off? I didn't respond. I let the messages sit there unread, like unopened mail I'd already decided to throw away. Then the calls started coming from numbers I didn't recognize. The first one was the ballet studio. The woman on the line sounded polite but cautious. She said there had been an issue with Ava's payment method, and they were just confirming whether I'd be fixing it. I told her calmly that I was not responsible for any future payments, and that she should contact Ava's parents directly. She thanked me and hung up. An hour later, the school's administrative office called. Same tone, same careful phrasing, same expectation that I would step in and quietly make the problem disappear. I repeated myself, this time more firmly, making sure it was clear and on record. I was not paying. I had never agreed to be legally responsible. Any future communication needed to go through Erin and her husband. By the third call from Ava's tutor, I understood what was happening. When guilt didn't work, they were trying pressure through institutions. They wanted me embarrassed, cornered. They wanted me to cave just to make the calls stop. That part didn't scare me. What came next did. It was a Thursday evening. I'd worked late and Eli had already eaten. He was at the kitchen table, drawing, while I went into my bedroom to change. As soon as I walked in, something felt off. Not dramatic, just wrong in the way you know when something has been moved but you can't immediately say what. My nightstand drawer was open, just an inch or so, but I never leave it open. Ever. I always push it shut all the way. Eli once spilled juice inside it, and I've been obsessive about it since. That was the first red flag. The second was the smell. Faint, but unmistakable. Cheap aftershave. The kind my dad wore too much of. The kind that lingered in rooms long after he'd left. I checked the rest of the bedroom. Nothing missing. The envelope with the emergency cash was still there. Then I walked into the hallway and toward the door leading to the garage. It was locked, but the bolt was scuffed, scratched. Not broken, not forced, like someone had tried to be careful and failed just enough to leave a mark. My stomach dropped when I remembered something. The week before, I'd had a plumber over. I'd left the garage side door unlocked while he worked. That same afternoon, my dad had stopped by to drop off a package and seemed irritated when I wouldn't let him inside. At the time, I thought nothing of it. I went to check the garage camera feed. The screen was black, not frozen, not buffering, disconnected. The cord had been unplugged from the wall. Someone had been in my house. They hadn't knocked. They hadn't called. They hadn't come to talk. They'd come in quietly, like they'd done it before, like they still believed they had the right. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed on the couch with one eye on the front door, listening to every sound. Every car passing outside made my heart race. I watched Eli breathe in his sleep and felt something shift from anger into something colder and sharper. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about safety. The next morning, I moved like someone who already knew what had to be done. Not rushed, not panicked, just deliberate. I dropped Eli off at school like always, smiled at the teacher, waved until he disappeared inside, and only then did my hands start to shake. I sat in the car for a full minute, breathing through it, before driving straight to the hardware store. By noon, every lock on my house was changed. Front door, back door, garage. I upgraded the security system too, the kind with cloud backups that can't be unplugged without triggering an alert. I paid extra for same-day installation and didn't even flinch at the total. Peace is expensive, but fear costs more. That afternoon, I called the school, the ballet studio, and the tutor again. I made sure every record was updated, my name removed permanently. I asked them to note in their systems that I was not an emergency contact and not authorized for payments or decisions. Then I called Eli's school and updated the pickup list. My parents' names came off. No exceptions. It felt surreal, like I was dismantling a life I'd spent years quietly building for other people. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I filed a police report. I didn't accuse anyone directly. I just stated the facts. Possible unauthorized entry. Evidence of tampering, security equipment disconnected. When the officer asked if I had any suspicions, I met his eyes and said, "I have some people in mind." He nodded like that was all he needed to hear. That night, as I tucked Eli into bed, he looked up at me and asked, "Mom, are we mad at Grandma and Grandpa?" I sat on the edge of his bed and chose my words carefully. "We're not mad," I said. "We're just keeping our distance." Why? Because they weren't being kind to us. And sometimes, even when someone is family, if they keep hurting you, you have to walk away. He thought about that for a second, then nodded. "I think they were always kind of mean to you." That almost broke me. The next day, a letter showed up in my mailbox. No return address. Inside was a single printed page. The words were sharp, deliberate, and unmistakable. "If you want to cut us off, fine, but one day you'll need us, and we won't be there. Eli will grow up knowing you pushed away the only real family he had." I didn't read it twice. I stood at the sink, lit a match, and watched it curl into ash. The smoke rose slowly, like something finally leaving my house. That was the moment I understood there was no reconciliation coming. No apology, no realization. There was only control, expectation, and punishment disguised as love. So I let them go, not with another argument, not with a speech, just quietly, completely. I thought cutting them off would feel like relief right away, like flipping a switch and suddenly breathing easier. No one really tells you that when you walk away from people who've been draining you for years, especially when they're family. The quiet that follows isn't instantly peaceful. It's hollow at first. It echoes. The first few days after the locks were changed and the report was filed, I kept waiting for something to happen. Another letter, a knock at the door, a phone call from an unknown number, but nothing came. Not even anger, just silence. That silence hit in waves. Some mornings I woke up clear-headed and steady, proud of myself for finally protecting my son and my home. Other days, the doubt crept in quietly. I'd wonder if I went too far. If Eli would grow up and resent me for cutting off his grandparents and aunt and cousin. If one day he'd ask why we weren't invited to holidays anymore. Why his family tree felt smaller than everyone else's. Then something small would happen. I'd find a drawing Eli taped to the fridge, a shark wearing a cape labeled Protector. Or I'd overhear him telling a friend at the park, "My mom's really brave," and the doubt would loosen its grip. Weeks passed. No birthday card from my parents, no message on holidays, not even a fake one. That should have hurt more than it did. Instead, it confirmed what I'd already learned. They only reached out when I was useful. Without access to my money, my house, or my emotional labor, there was nothing left for them to take. I heard things through mutual acquaintances, Aaron telling people I abandoned Ava out of jealousy, my mom saying I'd turned cold after getting comfortable, my dad apparently saying very little at all, which somehow felt more honest than the others. I didn't correct the stories. I didn't defend myself. I didn't need to. People who mattered already knew. Eli asked about them less and less. When he did, it was usually casual. A memory about Ava at the Science Museum. A question about whether Grandma still liked carrot cake. I answered without bitterness. I didn't poison him with my anger. I just told him that some people stay in your life for a long time and others don't, and that neither of those things is his fault. One night, about a month after everything finally went quiet, I was tucking him in when he said something that settled everything inside me. "I like our house now," he said. I asked what he meant. "It's quieter," he said, "like nobody's going to come in and be mean to you." I sat there long after he fell asleep, listening to the steady rhythm of his breathing. I thought about the years I spent being the helper, the buffer, the one who absorbed the impact so everyone else could stay comfortable. I thought about how often I'd ignored my own instincts just to avoid conflict, just to keep a version of family alive that only worked if I kept shrinking. And I thought about the moment I caught my dad in my bedroom, his fingers wrapped around that envelope like it belonged to him. That was the moment they lost me. Not just my money, all of me. I used to believe family worked like a bank account. You deposit love, time, loyalty, and eventually, when you need it, something comes back. But that only works if everyone's depositing. If you're the only one putting anything in, it's not family, it's exploitation. Life is smaller now, but it's cleaner. I budget differently. Not just money, but energy. I say no without explaining myself. I don't flinch when someone says family should always come first. Not anymore. Family is who shows up when your child is being laughed at and says stop. Family is who doesn't search your drawers when you say no. Family is who protects your kid, not measures their worth against someone else's. It's just me and Eli now, and we're okay, more than okay. I made myself a promise, one I intend to keep. No one will ever again sit at a table with my son and make him feel small, not a relative, not a stranger, not anyone, not even blood.